Members of the jury, welcome back. Thank you for returning to hear the facts of this case in order to render a verdict against Jesus. I applaud your dedication to justice and your commitment to the law. Our previous witness, Matthew the tax collector, he obviously didn't care what his fellow Jews thought about him as a swindler and a profiteer, nor did he care about what other people thought of him as a follower of Jesus. He seemed to believe that in spite of all his sins, Jesus loved him and in fact took his sins away. Tonight, we call a woman healed on the Sabbath by Jesus. Why Jesus showed such concern for this woman, it's beyond me. We'll leave that to your reasoning. It is purposed that a spirit of weakness had caused her to be bent over, doubled over, for 18 years. Then Jesus supposedly grasped her, told her to straighten up, and I guess she did. That was followed by a heated exchange between Jesus and a religious leader. Why, you ask? Because he had broken Sabbath law by healing this woman. So, woman, do I have the facts of this, the basic elements of this correct?
Yes. I was in a terribly painful and disabled condition for 18 years. Jesus not only made it possible for me to stand up, he also relieved all of my pain. It was truly a miracle.
Yes, well, I'm sure we are all glad that you can be a productive member of society now, but the miraculous nature of this so-called cure is not the point of this interrogation. So now, if you are able, let's focus.
But you must understand how important this was for me. You speak of focus. Try to imagine what life was like for me. Always bent over, always looking down. It was hard to do anything, even carry on a simple conversation. And it would have been embarrassing enough to be seen that way. But it hurt even more knowing that people thought I was punished by God for some sin, or that it was an evil spirit behind it all. I would have done anything for a cure, anything. I prayed constantly, but as it turned out, I didn't even have to so much as ask Jesus. He saw me, pitied me, and healed me right in the synagogue.
You must understand the importance of the law. And it is that last fact that you mentioned that we want to be very clear about. So you say you were in the synagogue on the Sabbath, fulfilling your religious obligations. And Jesus just came up to you out of the blue. You didn't go to the synagogue for healing? You didn't ask Jesus to do this thing?
No, I worshiped every Sabbath. I had my own place back by the door. Most of us, healthy or crippled, had our preferred spots. I will say that I had heard about Jesus and his teachings, so I was looking forward to this Sabbath. I heard he would be there, and I always prayed to God for a healing. But being a woman, I didn't expect God's special attention. I would never have expected Jesus' attention, much less a miracle. Men aren't supposed to notice the women. That's why we're separated in the synagogue.
Then what? Did you groan? Make some kind of a scene?
No,
Yell
I did
to
nothing.
get his attention?
No. And being in the back, hidden by the crowd, I didn't know how he saw me. But he did. Suddenly, he abandoned his teaching and said, Woman, come forward. I didn't realize he was speaking to me. Then I realized that people were looking at me and moving aside to make way for me. At first I thought I'd done something wrong, but when I got there and turned my head toward him, his compassion dispelled my fears.
Please, go on.
He said, Woman, you are set free from your infirmity. He put his hands on my arms and he raised me up. And that was that. I was as straight and strong as I had been 18 years earlier. I praised God, thanking him for the healing miracle.
Yet, you must have heard the synagogue leader's reaction to all this.
I heard him all right. I expect everyone in the town heard him. He turned on the crowd first, including me, even though he knew I had not asked to be healed. He reminded us that the law says that people are to work the other 6 days, and that we were wrong to be here on the Sabbath waiting for Jesus to heal us. But even though he said it to us, I think he was criticizing Jesus.
Now, we finally come to the point of this testimony. This Jesus is charged with ignoring both religious custom and the law. As it is written, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you will labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work. This was not merely a human rule. This was God's law. Religious leaders since the day of Moses have further defined it. Traditions have been put in place and grown up in order to help us to properly obey this commandment. What Jesus did and what your presence there incited him to do was a violation of God's law. It clearly proves that the charges against Jesus are valid.
But Jesus cited the very exceptions the scribes had allowed. He called his accusers hypocrites. Then he pointed out that the exceptions they themselves allow, like watering the livestock on the Sabbath. He said, should not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, bound by Satan for the past 18 years, be set free on the Sabbath day from what bound her? Imagine that. Being called a daughter of Abraham and set free from my crippledness, all in the same breath. No one refers to women as daughters of Abraham. So, Jesus not only set me free from my physical disability, but he freed me from years of being considered unworthy just because I'm a woman. Everyone rejoiced at Jesus' actions and words, except the religious leaders, of course. Being bested in an argument and having their own law used against them was humiliating.
Yes, well, that's why we're interested in the law here in this case. Freedom can turn to license all too easily. Just look at life today. Stores open on the Sabbath. People choose to sleep in or skip church altogether. Then there's all kinds of strange or non-traditional forms of worship taking place and being introduced. And even if people come to church, they seem to think that the rest of the day is for their own pleasure. For these reasons, we must convict Jesus. He started it all.
Don't you see? Christ doesn't mean for the Sabbath to go unobserved. He frees us from forced tradition. He frees us so that we can worship God with joy. I think that's why he chose me to heal. Because I was bound by more than my disability and an evil spirit. I was bound by the law. He set me free, set us all free to worship with our whole hearts. In the end, he gave even his life that we might have the kind of freedom and love and praise that God knew and that God gave us as our free selves, which makes me want to worship him all the more.
Well, you have given the jury much to consider. You are dismissed.